We did a milk tasting, and we also did the corn soup there, or brought in the corn that we had been growing here. We made corn beer, so we had that on display. And just started to get people to understand that there's something we can do here and use our resources that are going out. There's also 325 sheep here.
Oh,
all
really?
over. Did you know that?
Not that many.
325.
Wow.
325. And all their wool is taken away. It's also not kept here because the veterinarian studies it's not about shearing sheep and keeping wool and dealing with wool. So out it goes. And
Only with selling and
yeah.
how to get more money.
Well, they don't. They are dealing with a regular Dutch farm, so they're training their students to understand how a normal Dutch farm works. So I got 450 kilos of raw wool. Some of it's still up there.
Okay.
And I thought, let's at least keep the wool in and make a first university campus sweatshirt with the wool. And that's what this is all about. This is a sweatshop. It's called the Sweater Shop.
Okay.
And it's about local, not me making the sweaters, but students, employees, medewerkers coming and making their own sweater with local wool. And also a university tie. So, because this is what's sold here. There's there's a fair trade sweater. Well, what's fair trade? Let's start here and start from zero. It's 100% organic cotton, but we also know cotton is unsustainable. It takes way too much water. Let's use wool. Yes, you have to give water to sheep, but anyway they're doing it here.
Yeah.
Let's use the wool. I also made a sweater for a baby cow. That's what that thing is hanging there. I thought, okay, let's also think circular. How can the animals start helping each other in the farm? So I made a cow sweater because the baby cows are put outside in the winter and it needs a sweater. I wanted the lambs to give them a sweater. That was my first idea. It's too warm, exactly. And they're indoors when they're babies and the cows are put outside. So anyway, also out of the wool it's oily.
Is that lanolin?
The lanolin. And I found out that the lanolin is a natural source of vitamin D. And vitamin D, there's a deficiency here of vitamin D.
You mean a day?
I didn't know it comes from lanolin, but it's a natural source. I thought this is perfect because everyone's indoors, behind computers. They're not getting sun. We're also in a country that doesn't get so much sun. I open up a distillery, it's called. So it's with the chemistry department, we are distilling vitamin D.
Really?
So I boil the wool, and on the top layer of the water comes this muck, which is the oil. I take this, which is the dirty lanolin, to the chemistry department. They clean it first, get the lanolin out, and then convert the lanolin into cholesterol, and from cholesterol you get vitamin D. And this is actually the first, if you see at the very bottom, the first almost vitamin D of the campus made here, down there. It's still...
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they're just waiting on a molecular distillation machine. And what I also found out is that each department is siloed. So they're buying very expensive equipment here and doubling up on like CNC machines, every department has so much investment going into machines, but we could start sharing machines because they're sitting there not being used. And to offset the costs, you need to use them all the time. So we could be starting a system of production between equipment. So that's why they're stalled because they need a molecular distillation machine. But pharmacy has one, so
Yeah.
they have to ask pharmacy, or Nutritia maybe has one, but
Yeah.
Nutritia is very closed-doored.
Yes.
So it's you know, these things you learn about all the systems in hand here. But eventually that will happen. Yeah. What's nice is we are all, as artists, bringing our methods out into open space. We're very physical. We're very open to showing what we're working on. This is on purpose, that this is the Department of Search headquarters. It's open, it's transparent, you know, this idea of transparency, you know, this is open. And I have an expert felter here. This is Oliva Garcia. She knows everything about felting. I knew nothing about felting. So I have to bring experts in, which are often the hobbyists for me. But Oliva also had never worked with this wool. So you have to work with what you have, and this is not an easy felting wool. It's meant also, again, not for their wool. It's they're bred for their meat and whatnot. This is what this is about. It's working with what's here already and not importing. We have to use what's already here and work with that. What he's about is partnering man and nature together more, creating relationships. And he did 2 projects, Man Helps Nature and Nature Helps Man. And he set up in the Botanic Gardens right here in front of the Casse, the Man Helps Nature project. You know it, I think.
Yeah, we know.
And
The
in
concrete.
here, the concrete one.
Yeah.
And in here, in what we would love to become a more productive forest, whether it's a food forest or something, to start using the landscape as prototyping places for science and art to bring research out and make it in open air. So he's put his in the forest here by the highway. And that is a beautiful structure where he has the trees supporting platforms. And they will eventually grow into the platform to create a solid foundation for these platforms. But it will take time, so nothing is quick. It's not about quick solutions. It's about, we have to also think long term and maybe a little more slower, not the quick fix. So a tree maybe will grow into these platforms in 50 years, maybe they'll really grow.
Those trees within 5 years.
Oh, that's good.
That's really fast.
That's good.
Before the wood will start rotting.
That's also very good. So he's created these 3 platforms that you can go and you can sit in the trees on these platforms that are supported by trees. And we already have had biology students in there to maybe even camp. I mean, imagine being able to camp outside here on the campus and study the bats. They are studying the bats, but actually live in the campus landscape to see that this is also an ecosystem. It might be by the highway, but that's also part of the ecosystem now, our highways. So what is nature beside highways? It's right there. And birds are singing, there are mice in there, there are plants, and until you actually can sit there and take time, you maybe don't realize the beautiful potential of this little place, this little pleck. So make sure you go in and see the Nature Helps Man. This one is a concrete structure he made. Let's see, right here. So he dug down into the soil, into where the water can be seen. And he put a glass top here on top of this. And with the heat and the cold meeting each other, condensation happens. The condensation starts to gather on the underside of this plate. You can start seeing it there. And it starts to drip down onto this one piece of pavement where he hopes a new ecosystem will start to form. So, And eventually that will grow and grow to a tree, and maybe the tree will bust apart this as it grows as well and throw it out of the way. But that man helped this spot of sort of concrete, which is all over the campus actually, to create more green. So
And I told him we are working all year round to keep the weeds from the concrete.
yeah, so it's working. But maybe, you know, it's a nice way to just say, okay, we can at least accelerate it a little bit more and help there. So yeah, he also brought in people to help him, students to help him. So for a week and a half or 3 weeks, he had students help him with the model that's in
Here.
right here. This model.
Op het buitenfort is een klein prototype van wat hij hier gemaakt heeft.
Yeah, so that your visitors can also see what's happening over here as well. And he was actually inspired by the Utrecht building here, which is our favorite building. This is an example. Here's one of the biggest buildings of the campus in the middle of the campus, and it's dead. So there's a dead heart here. And this is sad because this was built as a prototype. This is an experiment. In the 60s,
Right.
engineers built this building, building the top floor first and jacking it up. And then floor by floor, it was jacked up. And this was an experiment, and it worked. And we at the Department of Search were so inspired by that you can actually, where you work is an experiment. But you can apply your knowledge to your actual working and living environment. So it was really a pity that we found out that this is emptied out. They don't know what to do with it. Is it going to be a monument? Should they tear it down? Should they revitalize it in some way? Well, we think it should stay. It should be an icon of engineering experimentation. Nobody knows this story. But these are these gems that we have been finding out along the way. Chris and Melle are looking at how low-tech can create energy. Not always high-tech solutions, but there are other very old traditional solutions that can be still used. And we're so after this drive of high performance, efficient solar panels, whatnot, but sometimes that's not very appropriate. We can look to the past for very relevant and natural solutions to, let's say, making energy. But they are looking at changing the Utrecht building, proposing that it becomes a student housing, which is in dire need here, powered by the students' muscles. So when they need the energy to power their laptops or their phones, they do this in a whole sort of systemized way, all with human power. And so you not only are dealing with making your own energy, but you start to understand that making power is not easy. It's your responsibility. You have to sweat for it. You have to negotiate with others to take it on. It becomes a communal effort. And this is why they've made just a first prototype of a bath. It's a shower. And it needs about probably 6 or 8 people pumping, moving, walking on a treadmill, working out basically to make power to have a beautiful shower here.
Okay.
And
Hot.
it could be hot. Right now it's not, but for now I think they're just working out that they can actually make it a self-sustaining system too, also through animal power. There's a treadmill here so you can bring dogs and horses, because over at the veterinarian college they have injured animals. Why not get them to make power for us instead of just hanging out and whatever. So they're really using all sorts of ideas about how do we generate power for a new type of housing. It would be maybe cheap housing, so maybe 50 euros a month, but you have to create your power. And students, we think, would be very interested in this concept and working out how to make these things
Could
work.
be the start of a real community.
Yeah.
Could also be the start of a war.
Yes, absolutely. So at some point, this we can get on it. You can try it out. You can pump. I mean, this is the other thing. We have people working out there on these outdoor athletic gyms. Why aren't they on here generating power? Or Olympus.
Yes.
So they're working with Olympus. So they've created all these partnerships. And that's more making this make more sense.
Yeah, every ordinary gym could be self-sufficient with energy.
Yeah, exactly. They are a duo, and they are bringing into the campus long-term thinking. A lot of research going on now is not very long-term in thinking, at least certainly about the campus. In fact, there's hardly any. So what they are doing is they are taking the campus as a context to think of what would the campus be like in 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, and creating scenarios that also involve personas of the future with stories, so that people can start to think about the problems of this campus in the future. Bring in robotization. What will happen when robots come and take most jobs? What will that do to research? What will that do to our daily lives? Will we need the type of research we have now if robots are doing all the work for us? So they have loads of data. They have another room inside, which is a scenario room where they have meetings with students, with professors, with all sorts of people to start thinking way in the future about this campus. Because people come and go here. Mm-hmm. Students, they are here for maybe 4 or 5 years and then they disappear, and they're also not researching about the locality. So this is about bringing expertise into thinking about what's going to happen here in the future. It's a list of all the occupations that will disappear from computerization.
Okay.
So telemarketers are going, sewers, people who deal with sewers, watch repair people, of course, you don't need a watch. I mean, this is an incredible list they have here. Well, what does that mean? Are we all going to have more leisure time? And what's leisure then? Is it actually going to be great, or are we all going to become bored to death and basically become blobs and not have to research anything anymore? And what happens to the environment because of this? And I mean, it's a very holistic look at the future from all different angles, from occupational to what kind of knowledge you will need in the future to, what kind of, will we need money? We'll be traveling all over the world. What will that imply? What are our passports going to be like? So this is a made-up passport, but it's of the future. So they put all these sort of clues down, and people come and they start working with all these clues from these scenarios, and it's a very nice way to think beyond, and then work backwards from that.